Damon Pistulka. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Curt. How are you today?
Dude, anything on the docket this afternoon, this evening? What's going on tonight?
We got a little Monday Night Football going on.
Monday Night Football. Who's on the menu?
We have the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, you know what? What perfect timing, dude. What absolutely.
I didn't even think about that until it just came out of my mouth.
We you know what? I planned this when the football season came out. I planned this little guest today. So all right, let's dive right in. We've got a ton to cover. So let's dive right in, Damon. So Damon, good luck to your Seattle Seahawks as you and your son go to the game tonight. I just want to share that. But Damon, did you know that this is the last show of the year? This is it, man. This like we're not even no Friday, not like this is it. I don't want to offend and hurt anybody's feelings, but we saved the best for last.
There we go.
Here we go. So, hey, I want to introduce my dear friend, Julie Basello. Julie, hey, Julie, how are you? Happy Monday.
Hey, great. Happy Monday to you too. And again, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Well, since Damon,
time number 3, so
it's
trifecta.
So you are a repeat offender for time number 3, and so we just want to thank you. We appreciate you joining us and share. We have a really fun topic, and so Damon's going to be at the Seattle Seahawks game, rooting against the Philadelphia Phillies. I know you're right outside of Philly, but you're a New York girl through and through. So let's start here. So I want to give a little background.
Yes,
we dug into it. I did the whole you've been on multiple times, so we won't do a super deep dive, but just share a little bit on your background, your marketing expertise, what led you to really bring your passion, your experience into manufacturing. Let's start there.
I segued a career as an operations manager into my own business, working as a photographer and a small business owner. And then some life changes forced me into getting a day job. But I was fortunate that I came across a day job as a photographer, as a marketing photographer. And that segued over a period of 5 years into a multimedia content manager role. So that's how I kind of ended up being in marketing, doing what I'm doing, managing video, photo, blogs, podcasts, and social media for a large manufacturing support company.
Wow, I love it.
That's the short version.
That's the short version, and
that's the short version.
the company you're with is Radwell International, and so you've been them.
Yes.
I think 10 years you've been with them already, right? Something like that.
Just shy of 10 years. Yeah, just shy.
Wow. Well, happy anniversary coming up here on the horizon. So just you're doing amazing work. We've been fast friends. We've got our buddy Dan Bigger in the house. Dan, happy Monday to you, dude. It's Hey Julie on a podcast, no less. So we're gonna dive in. So Julie, just share a little bit about your marketing evolution, your walk of how you've kind of gravitated and gone towards podcasting, but just share a little bit about your marketing journey early and how you graduated to really dive into podcasting.
I am a content creator, so I create content in various mediums, video, photo, blog, as I mentioned, and social media. And all of those things kind of got me curious about podcasting. I guess it was right at the beginning of COVID. I started researching and seeing what I could do with podcasting, and did some research, taught myself how to work things, what mic to get, all that, and messed around with it before anybody heard what we were doing. So I kind of created a safe space to be able to test out what I wanted to test out. And that's what segued into the podcast for Radwell. And as I was doing it for Radwell, I started doing it on my own as well. So the personal podcast that I run for my own business is very different than the Radwell podcast, but there are similarities. There's certain things with podcasts that should be there. And one of the first things is that authentic brand voice or personal voice, whatever it is. Whatever your theme is for your podcast, you want it to be authentic. You want it to be your unique brand voice, not trying to emulate someone else's podcast or someone else's success or trying to be something you're not. Both of those things are definitely dangerous when it comes to podcasting. So that's kind of how I evolved. It was really just, hey, I want to try this. I haven't done this before. Let me see what I can do with this. And of course, at the same time, I was starting to do voiceovers at work for our videos. So people kept commenting on my voice. And I was like, all right, let's put this to work. So I did.
Well, I love it. And while you're there,
Awesome.
why don't you share a little bit what when you said what you've done for yourself personally, either versus or compared to what you're doing for the company. But so if somebody's out there like, hey, I want to start branding myself, I want to get a podcast going
Mhm.
versus or compared to, hey, I want to get something going for a company manufacturer. Share a little bit about the difference between personal and on the company brand side.
Well, doing it for a company brand, there's certain standards you have to meet, and you do have to have rules because you can't just go on for a company and just have a free for all podcast about whatever you want to do. As a when you're doing it for that type of a brand, you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
more restrictions most of the time. For when you're doing it personally, so my own podcast is called Reinvention Adventures,
Mhm.
and it's about reinvention stories and reinvention tips because we all know that we've all had reinvention journeys in our lives, and it's very important to be able to productively reinvent yourself, whether you're
Yeah.
forced to or whether you have a dream and you want to try something different. We all have those moments where we need to productively reinvent ourselves. And how do we do that? We get tips from people who've done it many times before,
Right.
or we listen to stories about other people's reinvention journeys. So that's kind of you see how specific it is. It's a theme, and I've
Mhm.
evolved into that. I started off very general and it evolved into that very niche place.
Right.
For a brand, however, you have to figure out how you want to present things and how you want to present the brand in that unique voice. You don't want to have a podcast of selling tips about a brand. That's boring. But how can you segue what the brand does into interesting stories that educate and enlighten your listeners, your audience, if you will? So I think that's the difference.
I like to use Curt always uses this phrase or the term edutainment. And I think that
Edutainment.
when you put that together, you can get a lot.
Yeah.
You can
Absolutely.
engage people and they'll come
Yeah.
back time after time if you can.
Very true. Very true. And I think a lot of brands, look at podcast content and think it has to be video. And that, if you don't do video, you're missing the boat. And I am one of those weird people who disagrees. I think video is fine and there's a place for it in
Mhm.
marketing for sure. And it definitely gives you more content. I can I can create more pieces of content from a podcast that has video with it.
Yeah.
However, the medium is in its purest form audio. And the thing with audio is that you can multitask while you're doing it. I can pop my AirPods in and I can go shopping and listen to a podcast.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be watching YouTube
Mhm.
while I'm shopping.
Right.
I'm not going to be vacuuming and listening to a podcast or watching a podcast, but I might be listening to it.
Right.
So I feel like the first focus has to be on quality of audio when you're creating the, podcast content. And then once you have that down, if you want to build upon the video, wonderful. But you have to sound good first.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, hey, you know what Dan Bigger says about rules? Blah, blah, blah.
That sounds like Dan Bigger.
That is
Yeah.
Dan. That's our
Yeah.
hey, lots of love to you today, Dan
Of
Bigger.
course.
So
Thanks for joining, Dan.
Yeah.
So hey, let's dive in here, Julie. So let's our passion, our love is for manufacturers. I think you and I connected originally back to our dear friend Dan Bigger. Curt, like who isn't connected through Dan Bigger, right?
I know.
It's like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? Like Dan
Yeah.
Bigger's like our Kevin Bacon, right?
That's his superpower for
That
sure.
is
Yeah,
his
no
superpower
doubt.
making a connection. So I think you and I connected originally through the manufacturing Twitter group on Thursdays, of course.
Yes.
And so your passion is helping manufacturers. Why should manufacturers strongly consider podcasting as a marketing tool?
I feel like it's something that's very inexpensive to do
Mm,
and very simple to learn. Now, like anything else, practice makes perfect. And the more practiced you are, and you both can attest to this, when you first started out with your lives, I'm sure if we went back and watched that one, it's very different than today's lives are. But it's still good, I'm sure.
Right.
You have to do it to learn it. But I think once you do it, you can create an environment for your brand audience that educates them, positions yourself as a leader in your industry, creates education about your industry, not just about your company,
mhm,
and also allows you to speak in your authentic brand voice, which is something.
mhm.
That voice is important and it's yours alone. So why not utilize it? I think there's nothing that's expensive about starting out a podcast. You can literally get the equipment to start out for under $100. You
Yep.
can, the monthly fees for the software that you need to do what you do is just like minuscule. It's like a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Like it's really very, very there's no real resistance to getting into it in terms of finances.
Right.
And then just practicing like what I did, do a podcast before you know what you're doing, edit it, see where your ebbs and flows are, what you need to work on. You have nothing to lose by trying.
Nothing to lose by trying. I absolutely love it. And on the flip side, what if it works, right? What if it goes really, like, instead of like, hey, what do we have to lose? Like, hey, what if it goes exceptionally well, right? What if on the flip side of that? So Julie, let's dive into, all right. So low cost, we're going to dig into like content. Like, let's dive right into the benefits. Okay. Manufacturer out there, like, okay, Julie, you've caught my attention. I hear you. It's low cost. I can do it for a cup of coffee. There's a lot of juicy things going on here. Let's take it to the next step. Let's dive into some of the benefits that a manufacturer can really gain by tipping their toe into a podcast.
I think a lot of people, and I'm not sure of the exact statistics, but a lot of people listen to podcasts. So it positions you to get in front of your audience in a different place. Everybody's on social media. Stopping that scroll is getting harder and harder every day. How can you get in front of your audience from a different angle and still talk to them in that authentic voice? The other thing is just, I'm trying to think of, I lost track of your question.
the benefits. Yeah.
The benefits. Yeah. Okay. So the low cost is obviously a benefit. There is some cost associated with it if you don't edit, if you don't have editing readily available to you, but it's not a cost prohibitive thing at all. It's just another way to create content that's unique from what you were normally creating. Video is very common today. Social media, photography, all very common. Writing blogs have been around forever. What other way can you create content and then repurpose that content? So quotes from a podcast can be used as, image quotes on social. You can grab create an audiogram and just have a little like moving blurb that goes on your socials. There's a lot of ways to repurpose a podcast in ways that will, again, get in front of your audience and make them stop and say, what's that brand doing? Yeah. And a lot of manufacturing brands right now, they don't have podcasts. A lot of them don't still. I mean, when I did this for Radwell, it's going on 3 years ago, there was nobody like there. I couldn't even find manufacturing podcasts when I started researching. Now there's a lot more, but still it's not as many as people think.
Gosh, I'd be stunned. I don't know. If I say a number, I'm just completely pulling out of a hat, but I mean, it can't be 1% of manufacturers have. I bet not. Right, Damon? What do you think?
Probably.
I bet not. Greg Mischio was on here a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about that. Had done their big report on how much manufacturers involved in social media, blogging, and all this kind of stuff, and that was super low. So you got to believe that podcasts are even farther down the list. And the podcasting allows the manufacturer to reach out to just about anyone. I mean, this is the thing that I've learned over the years of doing this show with Curt and doing the other shows, is that it gives you an avenue to reach out to whoever you want to talk to. So if you have someone that's, like the best industry influencer you have, there's no reason not to talk to them, see if they want to be on your podcast.
Talk
about something they think is important to their listeners.
Very, very true.
And by osmosis, you're associated with those people then.
Right.
Plus you get to learn from them.
Holy
heck. Like today, listening to you about podcasting.
I'm not an influencer.
Today.
No, I'm no influencer. Let me tell you.
You may not be an influencer, but you know what you're doing with podcasting, and you're going to share some tips today that will help anyone listening. This is the cool part about this.
Well, this is cool, and I agree with you. And that's the freedom you have with podcasting. There's there's structure with everything. Doing a video shoot is not difficult, but there are certain things that have to be in place to do that, and there's certain equipment, and there's certain there's certain parameters that you have to follow. It's not like that with podcasting. It's much freer. Anybody can get on the mic and start talking. Now, not everybody is pleasant to listen to. We all know this. Right. There's some people who, and that's why I said the audio matters. You have to present the audio in a way. You wouldn't put a terrible photo out there of yourself or your brand and say, oh, look, here's my brand. Why would you put, terrible audio out there and say, oh, look, listen, here's my brand and this terrible audio. So that's where I'm kind of a purist with the quality of the audio. But I mean, there's tons of ways to really impact the business with just, a simple microphone and connections to some people.
Well, hey, And Dan, our friend Dan Bigger, has a couple of comments here, but he has a question. I do have an answer, and Julie, I'm eager to hear your answer. So he has a question. What do you do if you have a face for radio and a voice for print? Well, you know what, Dan? You do a live stream, because that's what I do, right? I have a face for radio and a voice for print, and so
Stop.
Julie, any comments for our friend Dan Bigger there?
Well, first off, I don't think there's such a thing as a face for radio and a voice for print, Dan Bigger. And I think anybody, regardless of how they sound or look, can do this. I just think there's certain things. It's kind of like, why did they invent these ring lights that everybody uses that light you up when you're on a Zoom call?
Right.
So people look better. So you get a few little pieces of equipment that kind of make you zhuzh up your appearance a little bit, and then you get on and you speak in your voice, and you get over yourself.
Right.
Sorry, Dan. I would only say that to you, the get over yourself part.
Get over. That's right. Get over. And hey, he says, hey, I use comedy. Who doesn't love a brand? It uses a little laughter while educating.
Very true.
He little FOMO here, Damon. Little FOMO, right? He missed out on the party with you and Ron, and so just wanted to share that. So, all right, let's keep rolling on the benefits for manufacturers. Okay, Damon, we talk a lot, content. Enormous amount of content, open up doors of connections. Say if you're in manufacturing and say you manufacture circuit boards, well, hey, reach out to the person that makes the components. Reach out to the person that makes the machinery for the components. Or for putting. There's a whole streamline of folks that you can be interviewing on top of customers. What if you interview customers and bring them on and showcase and get testimonials? Julie, anything that you want to segue on that?
We've done that, actually. Well, it wasn't necessarily customers, although I think that's great, and I am wholeheartedly a fan of it. We had a Meet the Manufacturer segment that we started to do before the podcast went on hold, and that was very successful. And the person came on. They were somebody that we worked with. They were also someone who we were a direct distributor for their products. So what was great about that is we weren't directly promoting ourselves, but at the same point, by promoting them, we were promoting what we do too. Right. And that's always a positive. I think that's a great thing to do. I really do think there's very few negatives to trying to do this. Very few negatives. You can put things out there in a way that's just very authentic and very different. And here's the thing. Our audiences are getting younger in manufacturing, right? We're all getting older, and the replacements are getting younger. Younger generations, love podcasts, but also don't want to be sold things. They will tell you point blank, do not sell me on anything. Don't tell me, show me. Show me what it is. Don't tell me about how great you are. Show me how great you are. Well, what better avenue to do that, to do the soft sell, than through a podcast and, presenting material in a different, unique way that isn't, oh, look at me. Look what I do. Look what I sell. Right. That's not what people want today. They want that softer sell, that, what does this company do and why should I listen to them? Oh, well, I like what these people are talking about, and they work for this company. That's fantastic. What else can I get from this company? Without actually ever having to sell a thing. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And hey, Dan's gonna be with us. We should just pull Dan on stage. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. I know I can. Seriously, we should.
Yeah. And then he also says, "Hey, you cannot get better testimonials," and I agree. And we've done. Damon, we work with a number of MEPs, the Manufacturing Extension Partnerships, and we've brought on literally dozens of MEPs onto the program and numerous clients where they just come on, they give just a gushing, loving, wonderful testimonial for the work that they've done with the MEP. And it's just, the MEP is thrilled, the client's thrilled. It's just, it's wonderful all the way around to put out. And who doesn't if you go to a good restaurant, who doesn't man, I went to an awesome restaurant the other day. Well, if you have a great vendor or a great experience with a supplier or manufacturer, why not express that and share that and put that out there? And it just makes you look better. It makes manufacturing, it's a win-win-win all the way around. And doing this through audio, through a podcast is just such a powerful way. And again, Julie, how much does it cost?
Oh my goodness. I think the whole thing overall, if you include editing, probably once you buy a microphone under $100, the monthly software, $20. Maybe if you get an editor, depending on how extensive you get, $100 to $200 a month.
Yeah.
An episode, I should say. It's not cost prohibitive at all. It really is, compared to other marketing efforts where it is cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
And what you also described, it was interesting, Curt. You talked about things, and what that's all doing is building community. So by hearing an actual voice, and interacting with your vendors and your customers and, your direct lines and whatever. You're building community. So people are hearing that. They're not only hearing you, they're hearing about your audience, which again creates a community. People can reach out to you. It's now a face to the brand, because most brands need that. They need that humanization. And we try to do that through marketing, but sometimes, we fall flat in different areas. But it's really easy to humanize a brand with a podcast. It's a voice, and then it's a person talking.
Yes. And if you do it right, it's a tool. It's a resource that your salespeople can utilize. It's your voice when you're not around. There's just so many things. It becomes such a powerful thing. Like you said, building community and building relationships.
Right.
It's incredible.
It is incredible.
For sure.
I know.
What was funny to me? Let me just interrupt you with one thing, Curt. That's funny.
Please. Yeah.
When I first started doing podcasts, I didn't think anybody was listening to me. I mean, with Radwell, I figured there was 10 people out there that maybe heard me.
Yeah.
And I do new hire photos for people when they start at the company. So I went into a new hire group maybe about 6 months after we went live. And I started talking, and I mentioned, taking photos and giving people instructions on how we were going to do this. And one of the people chimed in and said, "Hey, you're the podcast lady."
No,
recognize my voice.
That's cool.
Yeah. So you don't realize how many people are out there that actually need to hear whatever it is in your unique brand voice. It's there. Believe me, it's there. It's waiting for it's untapped potential waiting for you.
And it could be even months.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you didn't at all.
No, it's great.
Months down the road, and we've got a comment here. I listened to podcasts all weekend. Julie Basello or Julia's on point about all the benefits. You know what? The benefits haven't stopped. We're going to keep the party rolling on all the amazing, wonderful benefits. I know you've done a tremendous amount of work with our mutual dear friend Nicole Donnelly on her Misadventures podcast.
Yes.
Damon, you've been a guest.
Yes.
I've been a guest. And she's had just wonderful guests on her program, digging into different topics. And so let's go here from a content standpoint. Damon, you taught me this. How about the SEO benefits? Right.
Major SEO benefits.
So let's the three of us, let's dive in. Julie, take it away.
Sure. So there's a couple of things. First off, it's getting better. I mean, in the beginning with podcasts, I think it wasn't as beneficial, but now there's a lot of avenues where you can create SEO benefit. One of them is in the show notes. So having your show notes, having a transcript created of your podcast when it's done, all of these things are available through different software options, through AI. Because AI has made those things, those task-oriented things that used to be so, labor heavy, they're so much easier to do now because you just press a button and you wait for it to finish. I mean, it's literally that simple. And the benefits to having, detailed show notes, now people feel like they can connect you and they have an avenue to connect with you. But also you're putting keywording out there. You're putting different things that are relevant to your business out there, and people are connecting to it that way. So even if you don't, your blog doesn't rank, maybe your podcast will. Yeah. And that's something. And it's a big something in this day and age.
Yeah. Absolutely. Damon, I know this is a big thing that you're working on, headlines, titles. Why don't you take it away from your perspective?
Yeah, well, you made a couple great points there, Julie. Is getting the transcript is huge, because now you have text-based content that you can share on your website under your podcast or a blog or whatever you do. Plus, you can take the text and turn it into a blog if you really wanted to as well, which gives you even more. But I'll tell you, when you do the podcasting and you update your website with that podcast, and your podcast is around your core keywords, or as like Lori Hybe or somebody that's going to talk about the lotus flower, we're working on all the keywords around your main keywords and doing that. It is amazing what it'll do to the SEO and really the findability of your website for the right things. It's
very much so.
Because Google wants to see that you're putting new content on regularly, and everybody goes, "God damn it, I don't want to write a blog. Why would I want to write a blog?" Right? So you just don't do it. But sitting there, like you said, talking to somebody for a while about a topic that's good for your website.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Why
now
not?
I've got the podcast and the text from the conversation I can put on.
Absolutely. And let's even look at just taking the actual podcast file and embedding it on your website. even helps. Like I did that with the last 2 times I was on your show, guys. That's what I did. You're embedded on my website. I have, little blocks where you're a resource. You're in my resources page because this to me is resources for people. So that's the category it's in and that's what it's on. So this is going to get added once it's recorded.
Right. Well,
once you send me the link.
Now I wasn't going to go here. I'm going to go here, Julie. So be careful, be cautious, whatever transcription tool that you use.
Oh, yes.
Be cautious. Now, Damon, I went to prepare for today. I went back to Julie's previous 2 interviews. She's a repeat offender.
Yeah.
Been on the program. This is her 3rd time. So Julie, thank you. Man,
thank you.
Julie, you need to be a better judge of character if you're hanging out with Damon and I.
I'm a good judge of character.
That's another story. But I go back to the transcription and right at the top, I'm looking like, and there's a big fat vulgarity that I dropped. And I have never sworn on this program ever, but the transcription took a vulgarity and I'm like, oh my goodness, like what happened there? So I hurried up and I deleted it today. And that was from like,
oh, that's Damon. That's all you have to say. That's Damon.
Funny. That's funny. So you know how you guys are always, you were talking about my accent, right? And I said that you should hear some of my friends. Well, when you have different accents with transcriptions, I've noticed different people. Some people I transcribe perfectly, almost perfectly, and I'm shocked by how perfectly sometimes. And then I've interviewed people and I'm like, ooh, that's a rough one. I have to go back and fix some words on that one. It's just a matter of how it picks up on your voice and how your accented words are and how you pronounce things. AI hasn't quite, gotten it perfectly down yet. They're working on it though.
Yeah. They're working on it. Well, I have a horrible accent, so that's what the problem is there. So all right. So SEO benefits, just to recap, guys, for our friends, family, taking notes at home. Think about those core keywords when you can get those keywords into your title of your program, of your whatever you're interviewing. What a competitive advantage you have by putting your core services. Like, hey guys, today we're going to talk about, circuit boards, next week we're going to talk about components that go on circuit boards. A week later, we're going to talk about, best practices for circuit boards. Then we're going to talk about how to make a circuit board. So you just keep talking about your topic and you're educating. You're educating, as Julia said, to build that community, to build trust. Julie, let's go here. There's all sorts of different platforms to share your podcast. Can you please talk a little bit about what are some of the usual suspects there?
The 2 big ones are Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Yep. And I think if you're going to podcast, you must be on those 2. Yep. But as an added benefit, now I'm a big Buzzsprout fan for, producing and hosting my podcast. Yep. And I know that the 2 of you are as well. Yep. And what Buzzsprout does is they allow you by getting onto certain podcast platforms, they will automatically put you on other ones. And they also give you a platform that makes it very easy to get your podcast listed on all the platforms. I think most of the podcasts that I've done are listed on at least 15, if not 20 different platforms. But the one thing that they don't list on yet is YouTube. YouTube is a separate platform. And there's a lot of people who are, believers, proponents that you need to be on YouTube. It is the 2nd biggest search engine in the world. So they say, right? So I think that to get on YouTube, you don't necessarily have to have a video podcast. All you need to do is have podcast artwork and an audiogram if you want to get on there without diving into video. Still doable to get up there and still doable to post something. The other thing you can do is TikTok, believe it or not. TikTok doesn't have a podcast hosting platform per se, the way YouTube has created, but being on TikTok, even with a blurb from your podcast, gets you in front of an audience that can now link to listen to the full episode. So these are things that are all avenues and ways to get that audience connected to what you're saying and doing.
Okay, and just to recap for if anybody was like, hey, what did she just mention? So Buzzsprout is the platform that you just mentioned, and that's a it's a hub that will distribute to multiple different platforms for you. So, all right, hey, we just passed the top of the hour. We're here with our dear friend Julie Basello, and we are diving deep into podcasting strategies for manufacturers. Before we went live, we were geeking out a little bit. Man, we got super fired up. Damon, we were talking about AI. Julie, let's go there. How do you see AI impacting podcasting?
I think AI has already impacted podcasting. I think, right now, taking your podcast and repurposing content is something that's available to people who use a host like Buzzsprout through AI. Okay. So getting that transcript written for you, getting show notes that, title recommendations based on keywords, getting recommended keywords, all happening through AI right now. But I think it's going to go a step further. The technology is working so quickly that I believe that voice replication is happening right now. I think at some point you'll probably be able to interview an AI person. I mean, maybe I'm stretching a little bit. It sounds funny right now, but we probably would have laughed 2 years ago if someone talked about ChatGPT telling us, how to write a complete blog post through a computer.
Right.
So I don't know. I think they're doing a lot of voice replications, and I wonder if that's maybe the future of this in some way. I'd have to flesh the thought out a little bit more, but I don't know. You have to wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damon, you're diving deep into AI. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think for me, I'm simple. So I'm just looking at the simple automations that it might be able to help you with. Really, if you could, and I was, like I said before we got on, I've been doing a little bit of YouTube video watching, just seeing what people are actually doing, just so I stay abreast of the things. But there are people now that actually can, you figure out how to take, like when we're done with this, just taking the video file itself, downloading the video file automatically, putting it into Google and into Google Drive, so you can share it with people like that. And then based on the guest, to automatically email them the link to the show. And like you said, download the show notes, do all that stuff. I mean, just that kind of AI enhanced automation is something that's going to be really, really incredible for us to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing for content repurposing. It really is amazing for content repurposing. I agree with that. What about you, Curt? What do you think? What's AI going to do for podcasting? Look at me taking over this interview.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Great question. And hey, speaking of questions, Dan Bigger asked a question here. Why would someone want to do that? What is the benefit? So I'm assuming Dan.
He means the voice thing, interviewing AI.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the benefit. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you couldn't find somebody real to benefit, I don't think there's a benefit to that right now. That's just me kind of being my creative self. But I think down the road, there's going to be ways to utilize voices differently.
Right.
I do.
Right.
I just feel like it's already happening and we don't even realize it's happening.
Yeah. That's the scary part about it.
So, and Damon, let's take it another step further to what you were just describing, right? So let's say, we used to Damon, we always kid around in our training, like, hey, let's be lazy, right? How can we be as lazy as possible? Meaning, a little play on words, but just like how can we be as efficient as possible, right?
Right.
So let's just say, okay, I need to create content. So I can either sit at my computer and peck away all day or, like do something like we're doing right now. Well, how can I create just an immense amount of content based on like what we're doing? I don't need to, Damon, we never strive to be the smartest guys in the room, right?
Nope.
We bring on amazing experts like Julie, so she can be the smart person in the room, make us look a little bit better. But with AI, we do this conversation on video. We, what if we could automatically get the transcription down? Like you said, what if this automatically posted to the website? And then if I said to AI, hey, AI, pull some of those questions that I asked the wonderful, amazing Julie. And now could you create like a month's worth of LinkedIn post based on what Julie just said? Or, could I tell the AI to like slice and dice video chunks or audio chunks? Like how efficient will it let us go? It's already doing a ton now, making our lives so much easier. I'm excited to see how much easier will it make, because we're really lazy. That's why. So. But
I don't think it's lazy at all. I think it's being efficient with your time. So remember earlier I was talking about, as a creator, there's always going to be a need in creations for the heart and soul of a human, in my opinion. I think that we're never going to be able to replicate that. Right. That's, again, I could be wrong. Maybe, I'll eat those words 10, 20 years from now. But for right now, I feel like there's still a need for that human heart and soul to create.
Right.
And once you are checking, and I don't mean writing and things, those are basic tasks, right? I'm talking about creating a video or creating something artistically.
Right.
So how that gets repurposed and sliced and diced is going to rely on how advanced that AI can get to be able to feel the heart and soul and chop up accordingly. Because video, there's a nuance there that has to be in place to be able to get accurate information, cut out. Or, exported, I should say.
Right. And I think you kind of answered Dan's question here. Isn't the goal to humanize brands? That's the opposite of that. And I think, if I'm a little bit of a history buff, if you go back 200 years ago. The machinery was going to take away, people and jobs, and like nobody's going to have a job. And like, it's been, when the trains came into play, and then when cars came in, and then when airplanes came in, the computer, I mean, like technology is always, when the printing press came in the 1500s, it's always been the threat of, like, what does this do? What's in it for me? What's this going to do to me? What's this going to do to my job?
Right.
And there's a lot of the old sci-fi movies of like, when computers take over, or like, Terminator, right? That was a great movie. So I mean, there's always been that fear, concern, threat of like, the scariness of what technology is. But like, I love to say, like, can you imagine, like, I'm old enough to remember, like, Damon, do you remember you used to drive around and like, you'd have like the big map?
Yep.
And if you
I
got
remember
off
that
map, you had to
The
stop
Thomas guide.
You had to stop at a gas station,
Right.
for God's sakes, and and then like you had to be like the dumbest guy in the room. And guys, as men, our delicate, fragile egos, we hate to be the dumb guy in the room, and we have to walk in the gas station and say, "Can you tell me where I am? Can you tell me how to find such and such?" Right? So.
And what if you couldn't read a map? That was bad.
This thing alone, like, just saved every guy on the planet, so we don't have to go to the gas station anymore and ask for directions. But like, I always love to say, like, what's the technology that's on the horizon that we're gonna say, like, this is like the 8-track player?
Yeah.
Right? I can't wait to see what technology comes about that we make fun of this.
Me neither. But, back to Dan, what Dan was saying, there's one of the unique things about podcasts, because we're not replicating voices right now, is that even when you're using ChatGPT to write a blog post or social media post, or you're, getting photographs from somewhere, or using video or whatever, you're still humanizing your brand when it's a voice speaking to other voices about something specific to your industry or your products, still humanizing it. So that's good, because this, podcasting, we're using AI on the back end to create content, but the front end is still humans, and it's very much based on humans. I was the voice thing, who knows, but I really don't think it's going to really make it change that much. Do you know what I mean? It's a simple medium that's just, video got added and some other things got added, but at its core, it's very simple, and it's very doable.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my thoughts.
No, I love it. And Damon and Dan has another comment here. Dan, man, thanks for being here today. We should have had him on stage. How many people actually use their phone as a phone? And that's a great point, right? Our phone is not really a phone. Like, I don't know, like my phone never rings anymore, like if it rings, I'm always like, all right, what, like there's bad news on the other end, like, because nobody calls me anymore. It's either text, email. There's always a loss in translation through text and email. So that's, again, another benefit and a strength for these for podcasting. All right, Julie, man, I know you're super busy. We want to start taking it home. Let's go here. I feel like we've scratched on it and we've talked about it a little bit, but like, all right, there's a manufacturer out there like, all right, Julie, I am sold. Can you help me with a little bit? We've talked about some of that content, and I know like the three of us, we've thrown out like some different suggestions or topics, but let's take a little dive deeper into like topics. What are some, like, what have you felt been some of the home runs for you at Radwell, or Damon, if you want to chime in, like with some of your interviews and stuff? But Julie, kick us off. What are your thoughts there?
Well, some of the things that we did initially was we interviewed experts within the company, because it was it was like a softball to be able to grab someone from in the company and say, hey, you're an expert on the Swisslog Auto Store, automated material handling. Come on and talk to us about that. Or you're an expert about, I don't know, cybersecurity. We had the chief information officer was on our podcast, as we interviewed him. These episodes don't have to be long either. Like, I know some people have long content and they go for an hour or so, but you can do a 10 to 20 minute podcast and have it be just as effective as an hour-long one. Right. So we did that initially at first. Then we started bringing in guests. And then as we got more in tune to things, me and my co-host would take a topic and have a discussion about it. Then we segued that to guests wanted to come on, and they were reaching out to me saying, how do we get on the podcast? I want to talk about video for manufacturers, and I want to talk about this. And I was like, okay, come on, let's do it. So it kind of, it's a snowball that kind of builds as you start. You have to start somewhere though, and then you just build from there. And we chose to start with interviews and also topics that were relevant to plant managers, is basically who we were talking to. Right. So you figure out, like any other marketing effort, who is your audience? And who do you want? What do you want them to get from your efforts? Do you want them to get a combination of education, a soft sell, some interviews, some entertainment or edutainment? Is that what the word was, right? That you said?
Edutainment.
Right, edutainment. So we did like a combination of everything just to try to, see what our audience grabbed at. And one of the most popular podcasts we did was welding tips for beginners. And it was an expert welder that worked in our machine shop area. And that was the most popular podcast after the Radwell story. Right. Imagine that.
Wow.
And that's the thing. You just never know. Like, Damon, we've talked to how many times, like, you go to YouTube, and we've worked with different manufacturers, and there's like a piece of machinery that's like bending metal, and it'll be like hundreds of thousands of views.
Yes.
There's nobody talking. It's like a 70-second video, and it's just this machine doing this function. But if you're an engineer at Boeing, and like you need that machine and you need that piece of metal bent like that, and people are just going to watch it. So you just never know who's out there and who's going to need it in that the right buyer at the right time. Damon, what do you want to add?
Well, I think for manufacturers, podcasting is a great way to stay abreast of developments in your industry. Mm-hmm. I think because you look at, and especially anything that's relevant to your customers, right? If you're talking, say you're a CNC machining place, and your customers are designing some of the most wicked whatever out of it. If you talk about that with someone that's pushing the envelope in what a machine can do now, maybe that's what you want to do. Right. Or you want to talk about how to design things more effectively, or just all these, there's so many things to really go. And the people that are doing the podcast, the companies that are doing the podcast, they get up to speed on that technology. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's a dual benefit there of, if you really want to stay abreast of things in your industry, and you want to be, when people, your customers, your competitors, and it'll happen, your competitors will too. Mm-hmm. They'll come to your podcast to learn about the latest whatever, just because you're doing it. But your level of knowledge in your industry goes up so much because you're talking to all these people associated with your industry.
Right. And you have to learn. You can't not learn when you're exposed to it all the time. Right.
Yeah, it's true. It's free learning. It's free learning.
It's free learning. Free is always a good word. It's not a 4-letter word like the other ones.
Free is a great word. And it's, it takes a village, right? It takes a village. And the more that you elevate yourself, the more, in what's Google looking for, they call it good eats, right? For your Google search, expertise, authority, trust, and, the other one, let's see, experience, right? And so the more that you put yourself out there, the more you're elevating yourself, the more you put, Shopify, Apple, everything that you just mentioned, getting backlinks to your website. And we could go on and on and on. Julie, let's go here. Well, go ahead, Damon, please.
Well, I want to Curt's been asking us all the questions. So I think let's ask Curt one. Let's ask you a question, Curt. So when you think about podcasting or live streaming like we do on the Manufacturing E-commerce Success Show, what are some of the things that come to mind for you that were benefits of doing this that would be relatable in a podcast that you go, man, I never thought about that, but
that guy right there, Julie, that guy right there. And then these amazing people, like, let's see, I always get the pointing mixed up, but just it's the relationships, right? Yeah. John Baglino said it best. Damon, was that 2 years ago? He came
Hunt the relationships.
Relationships.
Still remember it.
And the friendships that we've built on this program, the people that we've interviewed that I would never, I couldn't even get a cup of coffee with. Yeah. And we've had times that we've been on this program where Damon and I, we're two old softies now. I cry over a commercial, but we've had times that we've been in tears on the program. We've had times where people are really sharing intimate things about their business and the struggle. It is not easy being an entrepreneur. So, that piece alone, the friendships that we've made, the doors that this has opened. We've closed business because of this. We've had guests that have come on here. Nicole Donnelly's been on here, and she's closed clients by being on our show. We've had multiple people that have come on the show and dropped me a note. They're like, hey, we landed a lead. Hey, somebody knocked on my door. Hey, we got a new relationship. And that is just, that to me is what it's all about. It's building a community. And then last thing, Damon, you said it earlier. How many times we're on the show and I almost feel guilty for like, we're getting like this high level coaching session, just like we are with Julie right now.
Yeah.
And I get off, like we hang up. I'm like, I can't believe I just got that for free.
I know. I got a whole page of notes every time. Like you get someone like Julie on, it's just so much learning from it. It's so much learning.
Look at all these notes I got. You know, like
I'm not kidding. Same thing.
It's a gift. So anyway, I could go on and on and on. Julie, let's go here. We're coming into the end of the year. You are our last guest of this year. And so
Honored.
Thank you. What a great way to bookend the year. It's been a wonderful and amazing year. What are you excited about for next year? Whether if you want to start personally or from a podcasting standpoint at Radwell, just anything that comes to mind. What are you excited about for next year?
I'm excited to bring the podcast back at Radwell. I'm going to work harder on that for the first quarter of 2024. And I'm excited to get heavily back into my own podcast. Both of those things were on my agenda, things that I wanted to accomplish. I had major pod fade with my own podcast and ended up getting back into it this year.
Nice.
And I have like 4 episodes already written for, reinvention adventure tips. And then I've got some interviews that I want to do. Probably one of you guys are going to get hit up. So just letting you know, start thinking about your reinvention stories. But anyway, those are the 2 things I'm most excited about, because I know the impact that a podcast can have. So I'm excited to be able to kind of bring that in again with Radwell. And also for myself, I just know how much I enjoy doing it and how much fun I have. So what better way to kick off the new year?
Well,
boom. Right there.
Drop the mic, Julie.
Drop the mic.
Drop the mic. So I tell you, this was, I cannot express my thanks, my gratitude to you. Love your support. And I'm, talk about testimonial. I am a client. I've been a client this past year of Julie, Damon, for our program here. Mm-hmm. And so Julie is an absolute gift to work with. Top-notch, professional, fast.
Thank you.
And Julie, you are just such a gift. And that's the thing, is like, you want to work with the best, you want to be around the best. And so I just, I want to thank you for your support, putting up with my dumb questions. And
there are no dumb questions.
Well, good. Well, I seem to, for whatever reason, David,
pushing the envelope on that once in a while.
I somehow find those dumb questions and pull them out. But you're patient, you're graceful, you're kind. And I can't express my thanks to you for all that you've done for myself and Damon here. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Back at both of you as well. You 2 are amazing to work with, and just having me on your show 3 times is really an honor. I'm very honored, and I appreciate you both. So keep going. Hope 2024 is another rocking year for both of you.
Well, we appreciate that very much. All right, we will close it down. Julie, any last words of wisdom? Any New Year's resolutions?
I don't have anything. I think I've cleared my brain of all my thoughts.
Damon, any takeaways?
But Happy New Year.
Another powerhouse conversation.
Yeah, it really is.
What are you excited about for 24, Damon?
I'm just excited to see who all we get to talk to and what we get to learn. I mean, because to me, I had no idea how much you can learn by talking to people every week.
Right.
It's
amazing.
It's mind-boggling. You know this, Julie. You do it. It's just mind-boggling what you get to learn.
It is.
And then you walk around with that sometimes useless knowledge until it's useful. And when it's useful, it's like people go, "How the hell did you know that?"
Right.
Exactly.
Here's another handy. Here's another benefit. We'll keep Julie for like another hour. Here's another benefit. Julie, I'm sure you'll attest to this. I can't tell you how many times I'll be on with a client and they'll be like, "Oh, well, we're looking for such and such expertise," and I'm like, "Guess what?" I'm like, "I have a guy. Like, I'm known. Like, I'm the guy. I know a guy because I'm like." All right, well, let me share with you an episode that we did last year. Hey, let me show you an episode that we did in the spring. Oh, I've got this expertise. He's a LinkedIn guy. You're looking for a LinkedIn expert? Let me give you this person.
That's amazing.
You need a podcasting expert? I've got this person. As a matter of fact, you don't have to watch the whole thing, but just watch like a couple minutes of Julie on how she's ranting and raving on how amazing podcasting is. So, I mean, the thing is, like, we have an archive of literally hundreds of episodes of hundreds of experts on different topics.
Amazing.
So again, I never want to be the smartest guy in the room, but man, when you go to our librry of our archive, I have a couple hundred smartest people in the room.
Seriously.
And then, and again, that just, and I just love being a referral source where I can help guide, maybe generate business for other people, because of these interviews. So again, so many benefits. You guys, strongly encourage you, if you are considering getting into podcasts, I encourage you, I invite you, I welcome you, connect with Julie on LinkedIn. You want to just, pick her brain. She'll jump on a call with you. Correct, Julie? I want to be presumptuous,
absolutely.
Right?
No,
So
absolutely.
jump on a call with Julie.
Cool.
She will walk you through the process. I can speak for it firsthand. She did it for me, and I'm deeply appreciative for what she did. She's done it for a number of our friends in our network, Nicole Donnelly and many others. And so, Julie, thank you for how you're supporting our community. Damon, let's close it out for the year, dude. So let's, happy holidays to everybody. Whatever you celebrate, we wish you a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. And just next year is going to be just even better than this year.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm so excited well, I'm just blessed to be part of this year, and then looking towards next year, we're going to have so much more fun and more great guests. And maybe Julie will even come back and give us podcast critique on our podcast.
That's right. Absolutely. And,
there you go.
Here's one last benefit. Damon, where did you and I travel to this year?
To Alaska.
Damon and I went to Alaska this year and conducted a couple workshops, and it hands down is because of this program. So
we that's
had
amazing.
A true trip of a lifetime. Had Damon it
was awesome.
Couldn't have gone better. And that trip was purely where we did workshops in Alaska for an organization, and it was thanks to and because of this program here. So if you think it's not worth it, man, I beg to take another point of view. So let's close it out. We wish you guys an amazing, wonderful, safe holiday. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And guys, just be someone's inspiration, just like this fine, young, lovely lady here, Julie Basello. Julie, thank you for being our inspiration today.
Thank you.
Hang out with us for 1 second. Thank you for Dan Bigger and everybody in the chat box that dropped a note. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you in the new year. So thank you very much.